This week on Resto Talk, we are going to talk about carburetors and engine tuning. We are mainly talking about Holley carburetor, but there are other carburetors out there like Carter and Edelbrock. They also come in a 2-barrel configuration or a 4-barrel. We also have to make sure that your manifold on your engine is set up for the carburetor you bought. So you can't put a 4-barrel carburetor on a 2-barrel manifold. In tuning a carburetor, we first have to make sure that the engine is sound. First, we need to do a compression test, check the plugs, make sure they're good, check the timing and the ignition. In setting the timing, you'll want to check the manual. Typically, on the older cars, we set an initial at 10 degrees with a 35 to 38 degree total advance, and it will be coming in at about 2,700 to 3,000 RPM. The other thing we also want to look at is the vacuum. Typically, depending on the cam, how radical the cam is or not radical, you should have anywhere from 14 inches of vacuum to 19 inches of vacuum. So after you've made sure that the engine is sound, then we can move on to carburetor installation and or tuning. Now, the reason why we want good vacuum at an idle is that the vacuum from the engine is what draws the fuel in from the carburetor. If there's not good vacuum, the carburetor will just dump raw fuel in, and that's where you're going to get your richness on your tailpipes. So in covering some of the things on the carburetor, first you want to make sure your float levels are good. And even if it's a new carburetor, you still have to check it because in shipping, sometimes they get unadjusted. You'll want to check your idle screw, make sure that the idle is set to the idle screw so that when you start the engine up, it doesn't rev up, and make sure you have a return spring on and for safety. And then at least at that point, you can start your engine. These carburetors either come with a electric choke or manual choke. Most of the time they are electric, and if they are electric, you need to put ignition 12 volt to them so that when they're cold, the choke will shut, and then when your engine starts and you have 12 volts going to them, the choke will heat up electrically and then come off the fast idle. The other thing that you have to look at is that when it's cold, you have to snap the throttle and see how much the butterfly closes. And then you would loosen the 3 screws, turn the choke spring back or forward to make it either rich or lean, and then start the car up and see how long it takes for the choke to come off, and then it comes off completely. So now that you have your engine running and idling, bring it up to engine temperature. Then you can start setting things. You can start setting your idle screw and your curb idle. If you determine that it's running too rich or too lean, you'll have to stop, take the float bowl off, and check your jet sizes and your power valve size. Your power valve needs to be half of your vacuum. So if your vacuum is 14, then your power valve has to be 6.5. The power valves come in half sizes, and you always want to go a half size down. So if you have 16 inches of vacuum, you'll want it to be 7.5. What that does is that allows the fuel to come in quicker or stay out longer. If you have too high of a power valve, it'll stumble, and if you have too little of a power valve, it'll dump too much fuel and also stumble. Thanks for watching this episode of Resto Talk. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you want to see other episodes of Resto Talk, subscribe to the channel. Also, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram.